Hi, welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog podcast for today, January 11th, 2018. I'm Madison Miller. Today I want to go over my picks for the NFL division round, the NBA season at its halfway point, college basketball season at its halfway point, and go over some recent MLB free agent moves and what's to come. Before I get into my picks, I'm going to have a new little game called Maddie's Picks. The rules are I'm going to pick specific games throughout the week and weekend in any sport, which includes NFL, college hoops, and some NBA. And I'm going to review my picks on the next podcast and go over how I did. For example, last week I picked Alabama to win the college football title game. Got that correct. And 2-2 in the NFL wild card. Last week I lost by picking the Rams at home over the Falcons and picking the Chiefs over the Titans, and I won with the Saints beating the Panthers and the Jaguars beating the Bills. And also, starting next week, I'm doing 3 podcasts a week instead of 2, if necessary more, in case something major happens. So 3-2 in terms of picks throughout this calendar year so far. On to the picks for the division round of the NFL playoffs. Saturday, the 13th, you got Philadelphia hosting Atlanta, 4:35 on NBC. Atlanta is coming off an excellent round 1 wild card road win in Los Angeles against the Rams, in which they played well in all phases. Philadelphia had a first round bye, but they lost Carson Wentz for the season. And now Nick Foles is starting, and they're the first team in NFL history to be a home underdog as a 1 seed in the divisional round of the playoffs. The Eagles' defense has shown leaks over the past month, and as well as the fact that Wentz is out, I love the Falcons here on the road to put on a similar performance like they did in Los Angeles. Atlanta 27, Philadelphia 13. Tennessee visits New England. Tennessee is coming off an improbable wild card round road win in Kansas City against the Chiefs, in which they were down 21-3 at halftime, and Marcus Mariota threw a touchdown pass to himself to get the Titans going in that second half. New England had a first-round bye, and that helps them from a health standpoint, so some of their key players can get healthy, like Chris Hogan, who will play on Saturday night. The biggest story involving the Pats, though, is a story from ESPN's Seth Wickersham saying that there was turmoil with Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and Robert Kraft, which I discussed on this podcast a couple days ago. I don't think the reported rift will distract this team whatsoever. They'll cruise here against the Titans team that, let's face it, got lucky last weekend. 33-16 Patriots. Book it. Sunday, January 14th, you got Jacksonville visiting Pittsburgh. These two teams met very early in the season, and the Jaguars won in Pittsburgh convincingly, and Ben Roethlisberger had the worst game of his career, throwing 5 interceptions. Jacksonville's coming off a wild card round home win over the Buffalo Bills, in which Blake Bortles was bad, but Tyrod Taylor of the Bills was worse, and the Jags defense led the way. Pittsburgh had a first-round bye, and like the Pats, it helped them from a health standpoint with Antonio Brown missing the last 2 games, and Brown should be back and will be back for the Steelers, and I don't see Big Ben throwing 5 picks again, so give me the Steelers to win comfortably, and I don't trust Blake Bortles against a good team on the road, especially in the playoffs. Pittsburgh 30, Jacksonville 16. New Orleans visits Minnesota. This is the weekend's best game, and these two teams met in week 1 of the season, and the Vikings won that matchup, although a lot has changed within these two teams since then. New Orleans had Adrian Peterson on their roster, and now he is obviously not with the Saints. He's with the Cardinals. And the Vikings had Dalvin Cook healthy. He's out for the year. Sam Bradford was their week 1 starter. Now it's Case Keenum. New Orleans is coming off a great wild card round home win over the Carolina Panthers. Minnesota had a first-round bye, so they'll be ready for this one. Despite winning, I don't love what I saw from the Saints defensively, and I think Case Keenum can throw on them. And Adam Thielen, who's been great all season, has been getting wide open for them all season long. That said, I like the Vikings in a close game, and I believe they can slow down the running tandem of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, similar to what the Panthers did last week. Minnesota 24, New Orleans 21. those are my division round picks. College basketball, midway point of the season, so many great storylines. The tournament is in about 2 months. That's something I look forward to every year. I'm going to go through the games I'm going to pick and just give my thoughts on the teams. I'm going to mostly do picks on teams that are ranked and some games that are just interesting to me. Wake Forest is at Duke. Duke is number 7 in the country. Duke's been poor defensively most of the season. Marvin Bagley's excellent, and Duke should win that game comfortably. Michigan State hosts Michigan. Michigan almost upset Purdue the other day. Michigan State's a very good team. Miles Bridges is a stud. I like Michigan State to win that game by at least 7 points. Because I like that Michigan team, but I just don't think they can win in East Lansing. And Michigan State's number 4 in the country, by the way. Purdue is going to Minneapolis to face the Minnesota Gophers. Purdue's number 5 in the country. They're coming off a good road win at Michigan and Ann Arbor, as I just mentioned. I think Minnesota is frisky. Jordan Lynch in trouble. That story is sad and disturbing. But Minnesota, don't rule out a close game here. I like Purdue for the second straight game to barely win on the road. I'm going to say they win by 3 points. Georgetown goes to Seton Hall, who's ranked 13th in the country. Georgetown's been a pleasant surprise in their first season under Pat Ewing. Seton Hall's been good most of the season. They had a bad loss last week at Marquette. Marquette's not a bad team, but they just got blown out in that game. I like Seton Hall here by double digits. I just don't think Georgetown's that good. Kansas is hosting Kansas State. Kansas is number 12 in the country, and they really haven't been as good as Kansas teams in the past. But I think Devontae Graham and Malik Newman lead the way here over a Kansas State team that's decent, but not as good as Kansas. So give me Kansas by double digits at home. TCU visits Oklahoma in a battle of 2 ranked teams. TCU 16, Oklahoma's 9. Trae Young's a stud. Trae Young didn't play well last Saturday night in Morgantown against West Virginia. That's okay. That West Virginia team does a great job defending pretty good players with that West Virginia style, but I'll get to West Virginia in a couple minutes. I like Young to lead the way for Oklahoma to knock off TCU for the second time in a couple weeks. And TCU, by the way, is coming off a heartbreaking double overtime loss in Austin against Texas. That was a great game last night. Number 23 ranked Florida State hosts Syracuse. I like Florida State in that game by double digits. Jim Boeheim with the Syracuse team. The Syracuse team wasn't supposed to be good, and he's gotten the most out of this team, and he might yet again make the tournament with a team that wasn't thought to be a tournament team. But that said, I like Florida State in that game. Number 17th ranked Arizona hosts Oregon. Oregon's underachieved this year after losing a bunch of key guys from the team that made the Final Four a year ago. Arizona's underachieved this season. Had those 3 losses in the Bahamas, and then recently lost at Colorado. But I like them here at home at the McHale Center. I like DeAndre Ayton. He's going to be a top 3 pick in the 2018 NBA draft. So give me Arizona by double digits there. Number 10th ranked Xavier hosts number 25th ranked Creighton. Each team with 3 losses. Xavier's coming off a rough loss at Villanova, but everybody loses at Villanova. I like Xavier to bounce back here and beat Creighton. I think that's going to be a close game. Creighton's a good team. I'm going to say Xavier wins by 8. Number 2 in the country, West Virginia, goes to Lubbock to face number 8 Texas Tech. That's the best game on the board for this weekend for college basketball. West Virginia's undefeated in the Big 12. We all know about Press Virginia, as I mentioned before. That style. They play defense. And that team's going to get better once Issa Ahmad comes back from their suspension. West Virginia is undefeated in conference play, but I think they suffer their first loss in 2 months here. I think Texas Tech wins by 3. Texas Tech's a very good team, coached by Chris Beard. Miami, 18th ranked against Clemson, who's 19. Clemson's overachieved this year, and Miami has been what most people thought, I guess. Both these teams are probably headed for the tournament. I like Clemson here at home, and I think it's going to be a close game. Let's say Clemson by 4 points. Number 22 ranked Auburn at Mississippi State. Auburn's overachieved this season. Their one loss came against Temple in November. And Mississippi State's been okay. They've knocked off some teams. And I like Mississippi State in an upset here. I don't know if Mississippi State's going to be favored in this game. The lines aren't out yet for these games. But I like Mississippi State to pull off an upset. But, like I said, they could be favored, so it might not be an upset there. Kentucky goes to Vanderbilt. Kentucky's ranked 21 in the country. Kentucky's not as good as previous years. They barely won at home against Texas A&M the other day. Got away with a call that should have been a foul, or else Texas A&M probably wins the game. But that said, Vanderbilt isn't good this year. I think Kentucky wins on the road. Let's say by 9 points. I wouldn't rule out Vanderbilt, at least giving them 3/4 of a game. North Carolina, 20th in the country, goes to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's missing Bonzie Colson for a long time. He might be back in time for the ACC tournament, but who knows? I like Carolina on the road to get a big win. Let's say Carolina wins by, I'm going to say by 5. I think Notre Dame shows up for that one. Texas A&M at number 24, Tennessee. Texas A&M 0-4 in the SEC. Texas A&M is starting to look like sort of a fraud, especially if they lose this game, which I think they will. Tennessee's overachieved this year. I'm going to say Tennessee by 6. Texas A&M really has only one good win on their resume, which was over West Virginia in Germany. Arizona State, number 11 in the country, faces Oregon State. Arizona State started off undefeated, but lost 2 games in conference play. I think they win this game against Oregon State here. Let's say by double digits. Let's go by 12. Cincinnati, number 14 in the country, goes to South Florida. South Florida's awful, so I like Cincinnati by 15 there on the road. Wichita State, number 5 in the country, tied with Purdue. At Tulsa, Wichita State, I think, is a sleeper to win the title. I think they're so damn good. I like them here on the road. Tulsa isn't terrible. Let's say Wichita State by 10. I just think Wichita State's very good. Greg Marshall's excellent at his job. The number 1 team in the country, Villanova, takes on St. John's at Madison Square Garden. Villanova's going to win by 15 or more. St. John's lost its best player for the season and is not going to make the tournament. They did look like a sleeper for the tournament before conference play, but they're 0-5 in the Big East. So give me Villanova big at MSG. And lastly, for the Saturday college games, Gonzaga, 15th in the country at San Francisco. That's a conference game for Gonzaga. San Francisco's a tough team, one of the better teams in their conference, but I think Gonzaga is going to win that game by at least 14 points. And then Sunday, you have Virginia, number 3 in the country, hosting NC State. NC State recently upset Duke, but they're not going to upset Virginia. Virginia is the best defensive team in the country, maybe other than West Virginia. So give me Virginia by 10, because I think NC State might show up for that game. Next, I want to go over NBA. I have a list of All-Stars that I'd pick for the All-Star team as of right now. I'm going to say who I would start and then guys that I would have as reserves. The East. My starters are LeBron, Giannis, Embiid, DeRozan, and Irving. And I think that's probably going to be your starting five for the All-Star game. And in reserves, you have Kyle Lowry, Victor Oladipo, Kristaps Porzingis, Kevin Love, Bradley Beal, John Wall, and Andre Drummond. And then in the West, my starters, Steph Curry, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins. Reserves, Russell Westbrook, LaMarcus Aldridge, Paul George, Karl Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, and Damian Lillard. These are tough calls making these choices, but I could be wrong come All-Stars, but those would be my 24 guys that I'd send to Los Angeles for the All-Star game. We're at the halfway point of the season, as I mentioned, and a game just ended. Boston just beat Philly in London by a score of 114-103. And then tonight you have two games on TNT that are pretty intriguing, and I'm going to make them a part of the pick segment. The first game you have Toronto hosting Cleveland, and which I think is a prove-it game for Toronto because they're a top two team in the Eastern Conference right now record-wise, and if they knock off Cleveland, that it would be significant for them. But I think they come up just short. So give me the Cavs on the road. Like 104-101. Give them by 3. I think that's a push because the Cavs are a 3-point favorite. San Antonio goes to Los Angeles to play the Lakers. The Spurs don't have Kawhi Leonard. And so a couple other guys might sit. We'll see about that. Spurs are minus 2.5. The Lakers have all this drama with LeVar Ball. I think the Lakers show up for this game and play the Spurs tough because the Lakers always seem to show up for these national games, with the exception of that game a couple weeks ago against Oklahoma City at home where they got destroyed. But I'm going to say the Spurs win by 6. Give me 110-104 San Antonio. LaMarcus Aldridge has been awesome for them this year. He's looked like the guy that he was with the Portland Trailblazers. And then Friday on ESPN, you have the Warriors going to Milwaukee to face the Bucks. Give me the Warriors in that one, although they might sit some guys in that game, which I don't think so. Give me the Warriors by double digits. Let's say 110-100. I think Giannis will keep the Bucks in it for maybe 3.5 quarters. And then the Warriors pull away late. I can see Steph hitting threes to make the score look like it wasn't even that close. But I'm going to say 10. By 10 points, the Warriors beat the Bucks tomorrow night. And then you got the Rockets going to Phoenix to play the Suns. The Suns are awful. I like the Rockets big even without James Harden. So give me 120-105. And Chris Paul leading the way for the Rockets. And then Sunday night, you got a sneaky good game on ESPN. The Trailblazers go to Minnesota to face the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are on a roll. They just knocked off Oklahoma City last night. Blew out the Cavs on Monday night. I like them here at home to beat the Trailblazers, although I think this game will be closer. I'm going to say 110-105 Timberwolves. Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns lead the way there. That's it for today. Next podcast, I'll go over all the picks that I made, see how I did, and then pick games for college basketball and NBA between Monday and Tuesday, and then I'll probably do a podcast Wednesday, do more picks and stuff, and preview the NFC and AFC title games, and then Friday next week I'll do the picks for the AFC and NFC title games, more college basketball and NBA stuff, and anything else that goes around. And one last thing before I sign off, Jay Bruce signed with the Mets last night, 3 years, $39 million. Good pickup for the Mets, even though they had him the last year and a half. It was pretty good for them. Then they traded him to Cleveland because they were out of contention last year. And maybe that will get the market going a little bit. That's been slow. And Yu Darvish, funny story, a Twitter follower of mine, Max Wildstein, tweeted out that Yu Darvish narrowed his destinations down to 5 places, and Yu Darvish retweeted him and said that there was a 6th mystery team, and that had some buzz going around. And I believe the 5 teams were the Yankees, the Astros, the Cubs, the Rangers, and the Twins. And I have a feeling the mystery team might be the team he was just on now, is the Dodgers. But we shall see. I predicted before the offseason and before the winter meetings that Darvish would ultimately go back to the Rangers, but we shall see about that. All right, now I'm going to go and have a nice weekend, everybody.